As usual, this video is a bit of an experiment. I'm trying to defy gravity. Why? Because I hate gravity. And also, because I wanted a piece of furniture that was eye-catching. I figure a good way to do that is to make a piece of furniture that looks like it's defying the laws of physics. So come along with me, and I'll show you my ideas. After I have the sketch done, I like to model everything digitally to make sure I have the proportions right and everything's looking good. For all of my videos so far, I've started with a log that I found and tried to turn it into something sweet. This one is a little bit different. I just got this construction grade Douglas fir. Because this is an experiment, I'm really just trying to see what's possible and if this even works, and I didn't want to spend all the extra time on trying to mill up a log that I find. Once I have all my pieces blocked out to rough sizes, I find the straightest edge on each piece and line them up against the fence, and that gives you the best two edges. You can see the joints are fitting together pretty nice and tight, just sitting there, no glue, no clamps, nothing. So now it's time for the glue up. For the purposes of this video, I don't want to get bogged down on the details of this box. They're pretty simple mitered corners. I'll put a link in the description for a good YouTube video that shows how to make really nice mitered boxes. I've got all my panels glued up. A couple of them aren't exactly perfectly lined up, and a couple of them kind of had a bow. So I'm going to run them through the planer to flatten them out, and then I'll do the miters. So my miter saw wasn't big enough to cut these, so I had to do a circular saw. And yes, I know I need to make a crosscut sled. When I glue up boards like this, I always like to break the offcuts to see if the glue fails or if the wood fails first. When you watch the experts glue up their joints, you realize the key to success is extreme concentration. For this project, you could really use a rock of any size as long as you have the patience to cut it down, or you could just find one about the right size to begin with. For being a bookshelf that's supposed to defy gravity, this thing sure is heavy. It's 71 pounds. What do you think of the rock? What do you think of the rock? How much do you think it weighs?
30 pounds? 50 pounds? More than 60 pounds?
Yeah.
Did you put that on my scale?
No.
You realize you're never going to be able to move this bookshelf, right?
Yes, I realize. Once it gets there, it's not moving. It's probably going to weigh almost 100 pounds. So how do you feel about really heavy furniture?
I mean, it's harder for the kids to knock over.
Except for this thing might be like teetering on the edge of falling over.
Hey, you know, it's a really good idea. Design something and then have it be a death trap for our children.
That's YouTube, baby. Just kidding. I'll make sure it's stable.
Oh, yeah,
They might not be able to like do somersaults off the top of it, but
they better not be doing somersaults off the top of any furniture.
well, you never know. The kids.
They are kids.
In order to shape up this rock, I'm using this dry and wet diamond tip blade. If you want to see more about that, check out my last video. As is usual, I've come up with a super janky looking jig to help me make this cut. It would mean a lot to me if y'all would hammer that subscribe button while I'm rocking out here. Woo! Okay, well, I think I'm going to try and chip this out and see if I can flatten it out with a chisel now. I think this is granite. I'm pretty happy with this. I just chiseled all those pieces out and it's looking pretty flat. Still heavy. Okay, let's see how square it is. Now that I got this side pretty flat, I can flip it over, cut the other side, and then I'll have two parallel faces. Then I'll go back and clean it up a little bit. At this point, some of you might be asking why I didn't scribe around the bottom and then cut around it. Well, I couldn't get a stable cut. I didn't trust myself to follow the line, and so I went with this way instead. I don't know if it's the best way. I think next time I might try and do a combination of both because there's a little bit of chip out around the outside of the rock. Now that I got it pretty flat and chiseled out a good majority of the material, I'm going to put this back over the top and go over it with the circular saw. I got this thing pretty flat, I think. Now is the moment of truth. I'm gonna flip it over and see if it sits flat. Still really heavy. Ugh. That's pretty good. Sitting super flat. Now I'm gonna come back and flatten this side up again. Now obviously the secret to this balancing is the counterweight over here. So as long as I keep the hammer here, I think the bookshelf should be good. Just kidding. The secret to the shelf balancing is going to be this. I'm gonna weld this into an H shape. I'll have a piece coming across the backboard like this, and another piece coming across here, and I'll screw it in all the way along, and then hopefully that should be enough to keep this side from falling down. Maybe.
Thankfully, my dad was able to help me with the welding since I'm still working on my welding skills. But it turned out pretty good, and it's super strong.
I've got the rock centered right at 1/3 this distance. And I just need to fit this on the back here. Screw it in. We will be good to go. I've got these notches routed out and I'm ready to put in this bracket. I'm really excited about how this is turning out. Can't wait to get it done. But I'm also kind of on the edge of my seat because I don't know if it's actually gonna work. I didn't do any calculations on it or anything like that, but I can always move this over and just balance it on the rock. So I kind of have a backup plan, but I really want this to work. And I'm not quite sure if it will or not yet. I'm taking the clamps off. Super excited. Let's go. Okay. Ooh. So it's been about 2 weeks. I'm ready to bust this thing out, but there are a few things I need to change. This holds quite a bit of weight in this kind of force here, but it tips side to side. So I need to stabilize it from going back and forth like this. First I had thought about drilling down through here into the stone. That could work good, but obviously I'd be left with a hole here and have to try and hide it somehow. There's already this kind of crack here. I don't want to chance splitting the rock in half at this point. My other option is to use some scrap metal, cut a groove into the rock and then into the bottom of the shelf here. And that way it'll provide a shear force so it doesn't go back and forth like this.
Has gravity got you down? Well, stick around till the end of the video, because even though I think this project really rocks, I'm going to show you all the ways I messed it up, lest you think you couldn't take on a project like this yourself.
Oh, that's crooked. Oh, doggone it. How did it go crooked? Should have been more like this. So I don't know if I just rotate the rock on the shelf a little bit, or if I try and compensate for that in my next cut, but it could go wrong. We'll see.
Oh, that was catty.
That was a very difficult cut to make, and I don't know how I did. It might be horribly wrong. Let's see how it looks.
Building stuff with stone like this is not for everybody. This rock was 65 pounds still, super heavy, and honestly a pain to work with. Typically I don't like staining wood because personally I hate dishonest wood. But I used a white stain on this just to lighten it up a little bit, and it actually really helped, and I think over time it'll help with the yellowing too, just to keep that nice light look, especially once it's covered in polyurethane. And I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Not everybody likes working with Douglas fir, but I actually kind of like the look of it, and I'm happy with it, especially since this is really a prototype. As for the adhesive, I used Gorilla Glue, and I squeezed the glue down into that groove too, and then settled the steel plate in there nice and squishy like. So far it's worked pretty well. I don't know why I didn't use construction adhesive or something else. I guess I just had Gorilla Glue on hand and I thought it would bond well to the stone, the wood, and the metal. It also expands nicely, which is nice when you don't have a perfectly even surface.
Okay, I just got this in place and that is so much stronger. It hardly moves at all, and the glue is still sopping wet. So I'm gonna clamp this up, wait for that Gorilla Glue to dry, and see if my wife will help me move it downstairs. I shouldn't have put the camera right in the way.
Rookie mistake.
From concept sketch to digital model to the final result, I'm actually really happy with how this turned out.
Well, it turns out it's pretty stable and it can handle a good stack of books and maybe even a child. Thanks so much for watching. You guys are awesome. So thankful for you guys watching my videos and checking out all my weird experiments. Now stick around for a minute and I'll show you all my mistakes.
It's actually pretty easy on a YouTube video to hide all of your mistakes on a project, so I thought I would show you mine. There was a bit of snipe from my planer I didn't properly sand out. I had a chunk here that came out. Some of the stone chipped out of the edge. I dented the shelf a few times from setting the stone, and a gross looking screw hole.